Missed any of our conversations? Let's catch you up on YouTube Repeat. Subscribe and stay updated. We are Radio 537.
That was Nasty C Easy. Hello and hi to everyone, and thank you so much to all of our listeners for tuning in. My name is Lebu Masalela, and welcome to another episode of Refining Perspectives here on Radio 537. Now, I'm not alone, I am joined by my co host.
Bohlale buzani. And we are
Refining Perspectives.
absolutely.
So today we're going to be speaking on the topic of the power of being present. And really it's going to be a continuation from last week. So if you recall, last week we spoke on, the importance of understanding who you are, why you do what you do, and, really having a connection to what and how you do things. And it's really connected to the greater topic that we're speaking about, which is, making sure that you're fully living in your purpose and you're stepping into the power that comes with that. Today we're going to be speaking on the power of being present. And really you can see the linkages throughout, all the topics of how, this idea of being present in our own lives is interwoven. And I think, we should also think, start talking contextually. Because, in the current society, and it links with a lot of what we were speaking about before, but, we live in a society that is so full of distractions. Whether it be social media, whether it be, anything, even our work sometimes is a distraction. So, I don't know if you'd agree with that.
No, I mean, absolutely, And what these distractions do, Lebo, is that they, sort of divert us from our initial call or what we refer to as purpose. And I think really, then we need to understand that the problem is that, we are here, but we are not present, right? So it's easy for us to sign in or check in, but are we really there? And that then leads to, two different aspects or mindsets that we're going to talk about today, which is either a proactive mindset or a reactive mindset. So the latter, which is the reactive mindset, is obviously caused by what you were saying. Social media is able to distract us, and our work is also able to distract us. But the question is, what are we being distracted from? And the truth is that we are being distracted from the actual inner work that we've been talking about. We are being distracted from being in alignment with who we really are. Perhaps you would have something to say around that.
No, definitely. I think even I don't want us to lose each other by this idea of being distracted by work. But I think just to explain that even a little bit and how I understand it is that we're so busy with our life that we end up using busyness as a way to justify not actually sitting down and reflecting on things or planning on things. So it's kind of this idea of life keeps happening to us and we're not even able to stop, pause, and actually align ourselves to our purpose, align ourselves to ourselves essentially. And that whole context, I think echoing what you're saying, really brings out this reactive mindset. So I'd argue even that as a society, the standard and what most people are doing is that we fall into that reactive mindset. And I think even just to explain it a little bit, is that when you have that reactive mindset, the action and your responses to life is usually dependent on the context or the situation.
Absolutely.
So we build our lives around our emotions and our feelings and things at the time, and not necessarily actually having a proactiveness about our life. So it's kind of like we're so busy, we work from deadline to deadline to deadline that we're not even able to pause and plan ahead. Which is then the opposite of having a reactive mindset, which is then your proactive mindset.
And I'm just thinking of an image in my mind where you've just got a surfboard, on top of the sea, and the waves are just, sort of hitting it towards different directions, where it's just like a vagabond, and I think that's what being reactive is. You are only a result of your circumstances and conditions. You do not realize the power that you have that is within you to sort of be able to plan forth your life. And maybe that then speaks towards what may be the proactive sort of mindset, which is contrary to the reactive mindset. And the proactive mindset is more of the planner, the futuristic thinking, which is focused on being present now and makes decisions for the future, that doesn't make decisions for now. So the proactive mindset is not really does not really respond to the needs around it because of like what society tells it or deems it to do, but it responds to really it responds it responds based on like what it sees in the future, like it brings the future present, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but I mean,
definitely. No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think it's this idea of, for me, of focusing on the decisions and not necessarily conditions. That's how I understand proactiveness, and really responding as a product of your values and your character and your nature, and not necessarily what you're feeling at the time, or any of your impulses. But whilst being proactive and having that proactive mindset means that though you're still influenced by things that are happening externally, they're not dictating how you respond to situations. So instead of now you have something to do, instead of now being reactive and being like, oh, but I don't feel like it, or this just happened, you're able to still center yourself and not be really influenced a lot by the external world, but you know what needs to be done, your nature, your character, and your goals. And a lot of the times when we're working from a reactive mindset, it does feel like we are out of control. So it's this whole idea of I'll deal with it as it comes. It's going from one crisis to another crisis to another crisis, and you're constantly trying to extinguish the fire that is the catastrophe of your life. Because you haven't had the time to actually sit and to be proactive and to be present.
And I think then that speaks to really what are these implications of these mindsets, like the reactive mindset, on because it really does sort of manifest on an individual level, relational level, and also like on a sort of macro level, which is organizational, etc. Do you have an idea of how maybe it manifests on an individual level?
I mean, I think even on an individual level, I think we can even look at your own work or like your own studying. For instance, like I gave the example before of like, let's say you're a university student or you're a high school student, and that you have all of these deadlines coming up, right? If you are in a reactive mindset, the moment that you have one thing that that's unfavorable, so one thing that happens, or you're not in the mood to do this at this specific time, then you end up pushing back things, and then at the end of the day you have 1 week where all your deadlines are due, and for the past few weeks you haven't been actually present or proactive or a planner in your own life. So now you have everything just rushing at you and you can't even catch a break. And I think even if we start looking at, proactiveness versus reactiveness in our own work ethic, like at a job, for instance, when you have a reactive mindset, which a lot of people do struggle and fall into, you're usually comfortable with, habits and patterns, because it means that you don't have to, work out of what's already established, so you're very comfortable in, just being told what to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
when you're done with that, you just await further
Yeah.
instructions. So you settle into this sort of routine
Yeah.
where you don't want to, do too much. You just want to
Yeah.
do enough to get by.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And really a lot of the times, when you have a reactive mindset, you do show up to life unprepared. So
That's
you
true.
will leave tasks for the last minute.
Yeah, yeah.
And then all of a sudden you have anxiety and you have stress because all the things are due in 1 week, but
Yeah.
you've known that for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just also, alluding on to that on the individual level, I really do think that it, sort of impedes us from living, high impact lives. And I think one of the reasons why we have these conversations is so that we can realize, sort of as young people, that we have the capacity to live high impactful lives, And now what that reactive mindset does, when you submit something in the last minute, you then have robbed yourself of actually being fully present in that work, so now you just end up settling for the status quo, that is of the time. So yeah, I mean that really is something that we really need to consider also on an individual level, and just level something that everyone who's tuned in right now, you can WhatsApp us. Please do so on 063-968-7566. It's 063-968-7566. Please WhatsApp us there on that line. We're assuming everyone has joined in now and they're keeping us company here, as we are talking about, the difference between a proactive mindset and a reactive mindset on Refining Perspective Exclusive. So now, Lebo, I think what I was just talking on top of was the fact that, or echoing rather, like how these mindsets manifest on an individual level. And I think what I was trying to bring across is that in order for us to be high impact individuals, we need to realize that we need to have a conviction of ourselves first. So now you need to be fully convicted of who you are, what you value, and what you are bringing into this world, so that each and every work that you are to do will include that, because a lack thereof, will lead to organizations that are directionless, companies that will open up and close down, because they were only there to trend for a specific, season. So those are the cons and the pros, like with regards to these different mindsets, and I think really it's something that we need to be cognizant of. And I think also on a on a relational level, do you have an idea maybe on like?
I wanted to actually even just go back to it, because I think you pointed out a really good point about the responsibility that we have, especially as youth, in wanting to really become the person that we're meant to be, and to be in touch with our purpose, is understanding that, are you just waiting for opportunities to fall on your lap? I.e., are you being reactive and working from that space, or are you actually being proactive about what you want, about your goal that you want to achieve in society and in the world, and are you putting in the steps and the planning and everything like that to really think towards the future? And especially since there's so many with the current social economic climate, there are so many demands that are put on youth that a lot of the times we do fall into that space of being very reactive and having that reactive mindset. But in order to plan for the future and to really change things, like even in terms of social justice and social change, we really need to start thinking from a very proactive mindset, and have others also think from a proactive mindset.
And I think also, with that note, we also need to understand that distractions will not only come like as an uncomfortable means. Distractions are most of the time pleasure. Distractions will come in the things that we love but are not really beneficial for our progress and our growth. So what's very important is that, and the only way that we can be able to sort of have a life filter is if we get to spend time with ourselves. We get to do those reflections. We get to, feed ourselves with content that has a lot to do with who we are, and why we are here. So that's very important, like to understand that being present has a lot to do with you being conscious, of who you are, what you value, and what you bring into the world. To understand that you are, even before you do anything, that you are an asset, you are valuable, you are worthy, and everything else that you will do then forth, will stem from that place of knowing who you are. So that even the proactive mindset, it will be a result of your relationship with yourself, how you view yourself, because with that being said, I think what manifests in our relationships is only a result of what's happening internally, right? So that's something that we also need to be cognizant of. And now, this is refining perspective, of course, and we don't just dwell on problems, but we also speak of what type of perspectives needs to be refined when we having these conversations. And I think maybe if I were to start, I would say, Lebo, we need to understand that a proactive mindset does not mean that we need to be busy all the time, because you can be busy doing nothing, right? So a lot of proactiveness has to do with preparation. I'll make the example of a meal. It takes you 10 minutes, to execute a meal or give people, to dish out a meal, but it takes an hour and a half to prepare it. So that's the same as us in our lives as well. We need to put in that work that takes, a bit of time, more than the time to execute. So I think,
I think what you're saying is also really important. This idea of, being busy doesn't necessarily mean that you're being, proactive, and it also doesn't necessarily mean that you're being effective. So really understanding when you're just being busy for the sake of being busy, and when you're actually being effective in what you're doing, and have, meaning. So understanding, that we're not going to be measuring our days by degree of productivity and how much we've got done, but how present we were, how effective we were towards, stepping into our future goals.
And I think that then will speak into the circle of concern, versus the circle of influence, where as people, we need to really understand that it's not about being focused on things we cannot control, but it's really about being focused on things we can control. Do you have maybe anything you can say about that?
Yeah, I'm glad that you even mentioned that, because I think that's, there's a book by Stephen Covey, it's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he really speaks about the most foundational principle aspect of being an effective person and being an effective leader is mastering proactiveness. And this idea of the theory of circle versus the theory of concern. So just to even explain it a little bit more, that, with the circle, there's two spaces. So there's a circle of concern and there's the circle of influence. Right. And in the circle of concern, it's everything that's out of our own control. Things like what other people think about you. Or, what's happening in the world. Case in point, COVID. Or, anything that we can't control. Things like the weather. All right. And that circle of concern is in direct opposition to the circle of influence. The circle of influence are things that we are able to control. So things like our attitude, or your habits, your enthusiasm on a day-to-day basis, how you spend your time and who you spend your time with, what you do when you spend, when you have free time. And, the circle of control is a good, circle of concern is a really good way of understanding reactive mindset. Things that are out of your control, when the environment and things outside affect your immediate mood and your ability to respond. So you don't necessarily take responsibility, you don't take action. And what it does is that it really creates powerlessness. Versus with the circle of influence, things that you can control, you do take action. And you focus on what you're able to control. And from that, you're then able to respond.
Yeah.
And from that, you have more power.
Yeah.
So whilst focusing on a reactive mindset and focusing on things out of your control gives you a sense of powerlessness, focusing on the circle of influence, things that you can control, make you do feel more powerful. And I think before we continue, I think we're just going to go into a break now. Just to remind all of the listeners, please do send in your comments and your engagements. The number is 063-968-7566, and we are going to be playing Freedom by Pharrell.
You are tuned in to Radio 537, Refining Perspectives exclusive. And the song that just played is Freedom by Pharrell Williams. The time now is 24 minutes past 8 o'clock. And the WhatsApp line is 063-689-7566. Please send through your messages there. We'd really appreciate, your messages coming through. As I'm not alone here on studio. I'm with Lebo Bohlale, right? So yeah, Lebs, we were talking more on the solution side now, right?
I think even in the break, I was even thinking, a good way of even understanding this idea of, a reactive mindset is, and the reason why we can understand how society pushes us into a reactive mindset as opposed to mindset is, for instance, how many people or how many of us can say that, when we feel better, we do better. And I think that's most of us. So that's even being very reactive to the social world, which is normal. But what we're saying, and I think what the message that we've been saying throughout the session is that what proactiveness means is that the good weather is within you. Even despite anything that's happening on the outside, we're able to become completely consistent within our turmoil, or despite whatever is happening around us. We're able to lean on our nature and our purpose and on our character throughout.
So being present has a lot to do with us stepping into our power, which is very much internal, and has nothing to do with what's happening externally. So that means that we bring ourselves, you bring your fullness, your wholeness rather, to the table. And I love the fact that you said the weather is within us, because as people, as you said earlier on, we're always looking for opportunity outside of ourselves. We're also always looking for reasons outside of ourselves. But it's very important for us to realize, that the reason exists within us. And I think then that then speaks to how, the purpose is at the center of what we're talking about. To say that once we know why we are here, that leads to then us being proactive. We understand that we're not just here by chance or luck, but we are here to be of impact and benefit to other people's lives. So that has a lot to do with the responsibility I need to take as an individual to empower myself so that people can drink from my well, and I think then we need to understand that the root of a proactive mindset, there is selflessness, where you realize that now you need to deny yourself and your pleasures, things that would usually consume your time but are not beneficial to your call and your purpose to this world. We need to learn to put them aside, because those things have a way of deterring us from who we need to become.
I definitely agree, and it really speaks to this idea of self-discipline, which I think if being proactive and having self-discipline and being able to master all these things was easy, we'd all be doing it, but it does take a lot of reflecting on adjusting your habits and thinking about questioning your hobbies and your habits. So that on the weekend you choose to watch Netflix or go out and do these things, and you spend 6-7 hours, but are you also putting in those 6-7 hours to actually reach your goal? Or are you just upset at the end of the month that oh no, and you have anxiety and you have stress because you haven't done what you wanted to do, but you were sitting there watching Netflix.
Absolutely.
And it really speaks to that self-discipline that you're talking about.
And I think with that, people mustn't misinterpret what we're saying as to say that don't sleep, put in the work. No, we're not talking about outer work. We're talking about the alignment, the intrinsic value. Are you, spending more time, you making yourself more aware of who you are and what you have, internally as a person. And I think then, with that being said, you then learn to live a life of discomfort. You understand that success doesn't mean that you need to pursue comfort, but success has everything to do with you being uncomfortable. Because with you being uncomfortable, what you are growing is a strong willpower to master your emotions. You are growing a willpower that is harnessing your inner power. Where you are able to show up to a place. No matter what's happening extrinsically, but internally, you are bringing your presence. You are bringing your fullness to the table, and that has to do a lot with our perspective of the evening. Can you be able to give the listeners our perspective of the evening?
So I'd really say the perspective that we can have for the evening is ultimately that, in order to have the power to step in your purpose, you really need to be proactive about your life, and really understanding that you cannot let the things that you can do nothing about interfere with the things that you can do something about.